Hey guys, Dylan here, and today we're going to be doing Sonic Oddities. This is going to be a podcast where we talk about all the strange things that's happened in and around Sonic the Hedgehog, mostly being the Sonic fandom. Today we're going to start this out with the only person we can start this out with, Christine Weston Chandler, otherwise known as Chris Chan. So to start things off, let's go where every story begins, with Chris's childhood. So Chris's parents were really old when they had him, and chances are this is why Chris Chan came out autistic. But there was a good chance that Chris Chan could have been normal if he had went to the right schools. But unfortunately, when they told his parents that he needed to go to the right places to be able to get used to interacting with normal kids, his parents thought that they were trying to put him in some type of shock therapy torture room, like this is the 1800s. So unfortunately, Chris Chan had to go through the normal educational system, and it's mainly because of that that Chris Chan ended up not understanding how to interact with people. One of the biggest things that he talked about is no one taught him how to date. I feel like that if Chris Chan went to special classes, they could have explained things to him to where he would be able to understand them now. But unfortunately, you can't really explain this stuff to an adult and expect it to click. You kind of have to start off young and really break bad habits before they become part of their personality. And that would be the big problem with Chris Chan growing up, is that he wasn't taught how to interact with people. He ended up developing an ego, he ended up developing selfish behaviors, and he is really self-indulgent. Chris Chan, when he was a child, he won a competition for a Sonic the Hedgehog sweepstakes, and this kind of made Chris feel like that he deserved to be handed everything. He thought that he deserved arts awards. He thought that he deserved special awards at school. He thought that he should win any contest he entered. And he was conditioned to think that people owed him something because he was autistic. That doing any normal task would be rewarded because he's autistic. And his parents didn't really help with this mentality, because they would reward him and praise him for doing very basic, normal things. He struggled a lot in school, he slacked off a lot in school, and I assume that he only really got by because he was special ed. And eventually, I don't know at exactly what time, they did start putting him in special classes anyway. But I would say by that point it was too late, and Chris Chan just ended up thinking he was superior to the lower functioning people. And this would be something that would stick later on in life, that Chris Chan is very proud of his autism, and he uses his autism to play like he is superior to other types of people on the spectrum. He hates people with Asperger's because they're really similar to autistic people and might even be autistic people depending who you ask. And he always put himself above people like those with Down syndrome. It's really messed up that he would have to use his disability like this, and the fact that he would take pride in his disability like this. But that's just what was conditioned into him. He bought into things like autism speaks. He bought into things that his parents told him, that he was special because he had a mental disability. And he ended up thinking that he was special. So, when he was a kid, his parents basically had to bribe kids to hang out with him, and this would continue into high school, where he actually did have quite a few friends. Most of them were just girls who took pity on him and didn't want him getting bullied, so they'd help him out by hanging out with them. He, of course, thought that he had a chance of getting with any of these girls. He did not. And in high school, he would come up with Sonichu. It was just an idea. He'd make some homemade Pokemon cards. He would act like Sonichu was his. He thought that Sonichu was the ultimate way to get around copyright. That Sonic and Pikachu may be copyrighted, but Sonichu is wholly his own. And I think that shows Chris's lack of originality, that he couldn't even come up with something as simple as an animal character. He had to steal two existing things that he liked in order to come up with this character. Early iterations of Sonichu were literally just going to be a self-insert for Chris, and it's really obvious that that's the case because Sonichu had plot lines similar to Chris's real life at the time, and Black Chew was originally going to be a magician, which was relating to his friend Sarah Hammer's current boyfriend at the time, and eventually he would end up making himself into a Sonichu and making a magician-themed Sonichu and giving Sarah Hammer her own Sonichu character. So he had two self-inserts. I don't really hear anybody talk about how Sonichu is also a self-insert. It's not just Chris Chan Sonichu. It went all the way back to the original Sonichu. And if you don't believe me, in Chris Chan's life shares that he gave Sarah Hammer, he depicted himself as Sonichu and Sarah as Rose Chu. This is the only time I can remember him ever doing something like that. So, high school was probably the peak of Chris Chan's life. Everyone sucked up to him. He was treated very well. He had a lot of places he'd hang out at publicly. He really thought that he was the But when it came to graduation, he ended up falling apart. He knew that he was going to lose his friend groups. He knew that he was going to have to start growing up and acting his age. He knew that everything was downhill from there. And he was upset that at the end of it, the school didn't treat him the way that he expected to be treated. He expected them to give him an award just for doodling. He expected them to give him special awards just for being mentally handicapped, excluding the fact that there are more handicapped people there than just him. It was that entitlement that made him feel like he was owed these things. The entitlement that was conditioned into him ever since he was a child. At college, Chris Chan would have even more problems. At this point, he really wanted a girlfriend, and he couldn't get one. So he tried making attraction signs. He kept putting the attraction signs up everywhere, and the dean of his college didn't like that. She took them down, told him not to do it. He painted her as an evil cartoon villain in his now actually being written Sonichu comic. And Mary Lee Walsh will always be remembered as a cartoon witch or a weird sex symbol, because thank you, trolls. And this is because of Chris. He decided to take people from his real life and put them into his comic so he could torture them. And he also did this in Soul Calibur and would even threaten to put people in Soul Calibur to beat them up. But it would be a combination of his comic book, the fact that he went around wearing a real medallion, the fact that he went around with the Love Quest signs that would get him noticed by people. People would notice this person. People at the stores who happened to walk by had to deal with Chris Chan harassing them. The managers tried to get Chris Chan to leave and quit harassing people. They would also become villains in his story. People on campus would see him and document him. And that's how Chris Chan would get onto the internet, is through people seeing him in public and just being amazed with him. And then, of course, the internet would start to poke around, see if he was real, see what the whole thing about this Chris Chan guy was, and they would start trying to troll him. And the first trolling was just sending him offensive fan art. And I'm not going to really name any of the trolls. There's a lot of them. There's a whole documentary going over all of them. Check out Gino Samuel if you want that. I'm just going to give an abridged version of everything. So, Chris Chan got offended that the trolls were drawing his female characters with... And this happened because Chris had gender dysphoria and was upset about his own. You can argue about the gender dysphoria if you want to. I've argued about the gender dysphoria before, but chances are this is what actually happened, because it would make sense for Chris to not be okay with that because Chris Chan resented himself as a man. and always thought that he didn't live up to the standards of what people considered to be masculine. So this ended up pushing Chris over the edge, and he tried to fight back against the trolls with his comic. And that didn't really work out, because the trolls don't really care. You can't really affect them through the comic book. But unfortunately, they decided that just harassing him through his fiction wasn't enough. People decided to start harassing him over the internet directly. We had a whole bunch of wacky trolls, like someone pretending to be Miyamoto and trying to get him to have a game. We had people pretending to be Chris Chan and tricking people into actually like playing along and pretending like he's actually Chris Chan. We had so many fake girlfriends. One of the fake girlfriends stole his medallion and broke it. One of them got him to shove the medallion up his we had the pickle man who got Chris Chan to go out in public and date someone and then stole his girlfriend when he kept harassing her. We had so many trolls in the classic era, and so many of them are worth talking about. That's why there is a giant documentary on Chris Chan, and a lot of it is about his trolls. But I don't feel the need to go over them. Instead, I'm just going to say that when it came to classic Chris Chan trolling, everyone except for Blue Spike were mainly trying to teach Chris Chan some type of life lesson. Either take responsibility yourself, clean up after yourself, behave a certain way, or learn to talk to women. They all had some type of message behind them, and they were really trying to get Chris Chan to better himself. It wasn't in the best way, and I would honestly say that this actually messed Chris up more and was actually really bad for him, but there was an intention there to do some good. There was a lot of joking and a lot of trolling and a lot of posting, but there was some level of genuineness there, and people were trying to help him. After Blue Spike, it would be a lot of people trying to hurt Chris. People getting really personal. People really psychologically destroying Chris Chan. We had people scam Chris Chan out of money. We had people destroy his PlayStation. We had people get him to hurt himself, hurt his mother. We had people get all up in his head and convince him that he's some type of god and that all of his characters did terrible, terrible things to one another. We had people go all the way to saying that they were going to dig up his dead dog. We had people saying and doing so much cruel and terrible things. And honestly, I think the Chris Chan trolling is some of the most toxic trolling I've ever seen happen to someone online. When I say a lot of this stuff aloud, if you're not someone who's subscribed to me and not someone who watches this stuff on the regular, you wouldn't even think that this is real, that this actually happened. But it did. And Chris Chan spent a large majority of their adult life being harassed like this. And it gets to the point to where there are hundreds of people documenting all of their moves, all of their purchases, everywhere they go online. There's a whole website dedicated to documenting everything that Chris Chan does. I have used that website for years to make hundreds of videos. Chris Chan has multiple different communities on YouTube, and these people have been doing this for years. There are people who have been documenting Chris Chan every step of the way. Ever since he was a kid, you can find anything out about Chris Chan. Chris Chan is now the most documented person in history. And I ask, does he really deserve to be? Is there really anything interesting about Chris Chan? The thing is that when it comes to Chris Chan, I think more people are amazed by what Chris Chan was, not what Chris Chan is. People don't really seem to be interested in the merge or the CPU goddess stuff or whatever stuff Chris Chan's coming up with nowadays. People remember Liquid Chris. People remember Clyde Cash. People remember the Pickle Man. All of that stuff happened in the span of a few years. Everything else has been happening for over a decade. For over a decade, Chris Chan trolling has not been funny. It's been mean-spirited, cruel, and try-hard. There has been so many different weens and so many different bad actors getting involved with Christian, pretending to be women, pretending to be CPU goddesses, pretending to be anime girls, pretending to be Pokemon. It's just really, really lame. And a lot of the people who harass Christian are just as lame and just as weird as Christian. These people who think that they're pulling one over on him have wasted more of their life than they really should have trying to harass this person that's already been harassed the same way by 8 other people. But getting back to the subject, Christian ended up wrapping up the original Sonichu comic. He got paid $1,000 to make more of it. He failed to make more of it. Christian has not made the amount of comics that they were supposed to, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Christian ended up doing a lot of illegal things. Chris tried to run over someone. Christian did run over someone. Christian pepper sprayed someone, harassed multiple people, and finally, Christian, their mother. This is a case that is still ongoing. Nothing has been decided yet. Christian spent over 2 years in jail while they were trying to figure out what to do with this case. And now Christian is finally out again, and people are doing the same. People are right back to the same routine of documenting everything Chris does. For a bit, things were dark, and they didn't know what Chris was doing. But now, they go and stalk Chris at Walmart. They go and stalk Chris wherever they're going and will document whatever they're buying. History constantly repeats itself with Christian. There will always be new fake girlfriends. There will always be some type of new belief system for Chris to buy into, either it being Christianity, the Cherokean stuff, the CPU goddess stuff, now Christianity again, but now Chris thinks that they're God. There will always be these same things. There will always be trolls. There will always be people who are trolls trying to protect Chris from trolls. There will always be weens and private servers pretending to be women, thinking that they're hilarious. This is Chris's life. And for right now, because Chris just got out of jail, they're not allowed to talk to anybody online, I'm pretty sure. So things have been pretty dark. But as soon as Chris is able to, they will go back to Discord. They will go back to Twitter. They will go back to these same things because it's all they know. It's all they have. They can't see their mother anymore because of obvious reasons. Their father is dead. Their pets are dead. The few remaining ones are with their mother. They have no home. They have no dignity. They have no imagination to run off to. They're just going to pretend like they are some type of god and pretend like at some point the world is going to turn into a cartoon world and everything will be perfect and they will finally be happy. But there is no happiness. There's just more and more despair. Day by day, Christian loses more hair. Day by day, Christian gains more weight. Day by day, Christian loses more of their sanity. Christian is a cautionary tale. Christian is something that you shouldn't admire. You shouldn't ever try to be. And honestly, I think that you shouldn't even try to be like any of the people involved with Chris. You shouldn't try to be like Clyde Cash. You shouldn't try to be like Liquid Chris. You shouldn't try to be a Christorian. This is honestly a giant waste of time. People have documented this person for over 10 years now. This is a person who's their own mother. And people still worship this person. People still try to get in the good graces of this person. I regret spending as many years as I did documenting Christian. This is my swan song to covering Christian. I do plan to cover Sonichu later, but as far as I'm aware, this is going to be the last time I cover Chris themselves. I probably messed up a couple times and said he or she or whatever. If that happened, my bad. If I talked about something that offended you, also my bad. This is the most controversial one that I can think of. This is the most in demand one that I could think of. And this is the one that has me the most nervous to cover. Today we are going to be talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the frickin' frick himself, Sammy Classic Sonic Fan. Now, Sammy Classic Sonic Fan has been on the internet for a really long time, just about as long as I have. It said that he could be on the internet from 2013 to 2014. I see conflicting accounts on that. I'm going to say 2013. Now, Sammy is a very notable person because he is the original crazy Sonic fan. And you have probably heard plenty of his videos used in memes even to this day. The quote you've probably heard is, "When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?" And that was from one of his big Sonic rants. Now, Sammy made a YouTube channel when he was pretty young. And just like a young kid would do, he uploaded rant videos and weird videos all together. And his most notable video is Stop Hating on Sonic. Rage Against the Sonic fanbase is up there too. Give the Nintendo 2DS a chance. And so many more. Sammy would do these rant videos where he would act crazy and destroy his room and scream at the camera. Things that you would expect a child to do. He said that he was inspired by the AVGN, and I can definitely see it. But I also know that a lot of that rage is very, very real. Now, Sammy would also go on little adventures in his backyard called Sammy Classic Sonic Fans Adventures. And in this video, he would grab a stick, sometimes wrapped with aluminum foil, and his Sonic backpack, and he would have weird adventures in the backyard with his toys. It was very wholesome content, but with all this stuff being uploaded on his channel, he was a prime target for trolling. People would harass him in his comment sections, people would harass him in any other way that they could. They eventually doxed him, they were trying to allegedly swat him. They were talking about doing a lot of messed up things to this poor child. And luckily, because this isn't a Christian scenario, Sammy's parents stepped in. They saw all the hate that he was getting, they saw all the hate he was giving, and they decided to pull the plug on his YouTube account. Sammy tried to come back to YouTube multiple times since then, and to questionable results. None of Sammy Classic Sonic Fans' channels really blew up like his original channel. I believe it was lightning in a bottle. And even when he tried to put on the Angry Rancher persona and do the content he was known for, the genuineness is not there. And supposedly this is because Sammy actually ended up getting help and got on some meds to mellow him out. And as someone who is also on medications to mellow you out, I can agree that it makes it really hard to get angry. So I can get why he couldn't do the videos that he did with such enthusiasm after that point. I'm really glad that he got help. I'm really glad that his parents stepped in. I'm really glad that he got the therapy that he needed. Sammy actually ended up growing up and becoming a really responsible man. And he was actually able to complete high school and go to college, which congratulations on him. He's even gotten girlfriends before, and he's actually gotten jobs before. Sammy is actually a really well-adjusted guy and is better off than most of the people who were insulting him. I'm really glad that Sammy got a good ending, and he even uploads to YouTube again, and the content he makes is pretty good. I'm going to link his channel down below. I think you guys should check that out. Another thing that Sammy was notable though is his appearances on Chadtronic. And Sammy ended up actually going on Chadtronic and doing videos with him, which is really nice that he's able to own up to his cringe and even participate in it. Sammy is someone who is very self-aware. He is someone who regrets his past, but he's not someone who runs from it. And I can respect that. I've actually had an interview with him before, and I had a pleasant conversation with him there. Sammy is actually a really cool guy. And out of a lot of the people that we are going to cover on this, he's probably the best of them. So, Sammy, I wish you the best of luck with your channels. I wish you the best of luck with life. Today, we are covering Son Manic, or Richard Kuda, or a Knothole Resident, or what other name he came up with. He has plenty of usernames online. Now, one thing I want to say is, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this, is that I'm not trying to harass him. I don't want you to harass this guy. I'm just remembering what I know about him and telling you guys the story of what I know about him. I'm not claiming that this is some in-depth analysis. There's actually big videos done on him already, so if you want to know more about him, go check those out. So, Richard Kuda is a guy who's been in the Sonic fandom forever, and when he's in the Sonic fandom, he's really, really irritating. He has really strong passions towards certain parts of the fandom, and he'll have superiority with those. He has a very strong idea of what Sonic should be, and if you tend to disagree with that, chances are you're going to be harassed by him. And what he thinks Sonic should be is SatAM. SatAM is the beginning and end of Sonic for Richard Kuda. Sonic should always be classic Sonic. Robotnik should always be Robotnik and not Eggman. Modern Sonic shouldn't exist. The usual talking points. In fact, the usual talking points come from him. Richard Kuda infamously made a video about Sonic the Hedgehog 4 where he actually created a lot of the anti-modern Sonic rants. He started the green eyes discussion. He called Sonic lanky and ugly. He started a lot of the issues that people had with modern Sonic, and really was ahead of the curve when it came to the modern classic divide. So it's weird that, like, Richard Kuda is the stem, the main source of some of the most dividing stuff in the Sonic fandom. And the thing is that Richard Kuda has basically devoted his whole life to Sally Acorn and SatAM, and he is persistent on bringing back those two things. The SatAM show ended decades ago at this point, and the Archie comics ended in like 2018. But this won't stop Richard Kuda. Richard Kuda will go around messaging employees to try to get information about this stuff. He will stalk people to try to get information about this stuff. And he will do multiple dedicated campaigns to try to bring this stuff back. He's been involved in every single campaign to try to bring back either Archie or bring back the Freedom Fighters. He's had so many different movements. And the thing is, if this was anyone else doing this stuff, we'd be fine. And we'd just be like, oh wow, good for you. I'm glad that you're doing this thing. But with Richard Kuda, he tends to always revolve it back to himself and make it about himself. So even though he's a part of these movements, it's not about actually getting Sally or the Freedom Fighters in, it's what he's doing to get it done. And the one thing that I can give him is his commitment to get it done. He'll actually hit up voice actors and pay them to record lines for the characters. He'll hit up employees to see if they actually have the rights to these characters. He'll actually go and do the things that other people claim they want to do. That persistence and that ability to reach out to people is actually admirable traits. It's just a real shame that Richard Kuda's own shortcomings constantly get in the way. Richard Kuda always bites off more than what he can chew, and then he ends up getting everything thrown back at him, and he can never handle it. And that's the sad thing about Richard Kuda is that underneath all of his childish behavior and underneath all of his weird ego and his need to prove himself superior to other Sonic fans and prove his Sonic superior is a passionate person. It's a passionate person who loves this franchise and really wants to show people the history of the character, show them what it was like to be a fan in the 90s and 2000s. And I kinda like that. But then he's also the guy who goes around bootlegging SatAM and selling it to people. He's also the guy who tried to bootleg the Archie comics and sell it to people illegally. He's also the guy who spreads rumors about people. He's also the guy who participates in a lot of petty dramas to this day. He's also the guy who pretends to be a giant baby. And I mean literally a giant baby. He wears diapers and everything. He's also the guy who will cosplay as Sally Acorn in public. He's the type of guy who will roleplay with himself. Richard Kuda has so many issues and he has so many demons that it makes it really hard to work with him. And the thing that makes it especially hard to even talk about Richard Kuda is that he has a perpetual victim complex, where if you talk to him at all, he will always try to spin it into him being a victim and how he's misunderstood and how everyone just doesn't get him. But if you hang around him long enough, you see that that's literally everyone. Everyone to him is the bad guy. Everyone to him is a manipulator or a liar who's trying to ruin his good name, even though he didn't have a good name to ruin. He never takes accountability for his own actions. There's always some type of boogeyman out there. There's always some type of dastardly troll or something to blame. And I even had to deal with this firsthand because I interviewed Richard Kuda for my Sonic podcast a few years back, but then I made my disdain for Richard Kuda apparent, and he decided to try to throw me under the bus and say that I betrayed him. He tried to act like that I was some deep friend of his, even though I only had the one conversation with him. He even tricked a YouTuber who does documentaries into believing his sob story of me being his uber best friend who betrayed him for literally no reason. And this is what will happen if you associate with Richard Kuda. He will use you, he will manipulate you, and then when you eventually realize that this guy is going to tear everything apart and take everyone down with him and you leave, he'll just call you one of his haters and call you one of his detractors and throw you under the bus too. Richard Kuda isn't really worth working with. All of the projects that he's been involved with, for the most part, never got off the ground or immediately blew up. And by blew up, I mean in the most negative way. We have the Save the Freedom Fighters movement, we have Rally for Sally, we have so many different organizations that we can tie back to him, and they just never work. They always end due to infighting and drama, and it's because Richard Kuda is the drama. Richard Kuda is the infighting. He can never put Sonic above himself and act mature enough to actually complete any of the projects that he wants to do. And I think that's the biggest problem with Richard Kuda in the end of things, is that he's a person who has a lot of motivation. He's a person who has a lot of disposable income. He's a person who has a lot of passion for the thing that he talks about. It's just unfortunate that he can never direct that passion into anything creative. He always wants someone else to do something. He wants to hire someone else to do the art. He wants to hire someone else to do the voices. He wants to hire someone else to make the comic, hire someone else to make the animation. And that can be seen with all of his stuff. That can be seen with him hitting up voice actors. That can be seen with him getting someone to animate a Sonic SatAM movie pitch that he actually made and try to workshop this around. It can be seen with him trying to get someone to voice Sonic and not having the to tell them that he doesn't want them voicing Sonic, and then that ends up causing infighting and ending up with the whole project falling apart. Richard Kuda can never make anything successfully because Richard Kuda isn't competent enough to be able to do so. Every project he's involved in will always inevitably fall apart, and it's because of the faults of his character and the lack of maturity that he has. I really hope the best for Richard Kuda, and I hope that one day he'll be able to see past himself and be able to overcome his flaws and genuinely make something people are interested in. He got kicked out of pretty much any project that he's been involved in, and I could have got more into the nitty-gritty of all the wacky stuff that he got up to, like all the weird interactions he had with people online, him pretending to be someone so he could be in Rally for Sally. I could go over all of that, but I think I'm gonna save Rally for Sally for its own video. And I think I'm just gonna wrap up Richard Kuda with, this is someone who first got infamous because he was bootlegging SatAM, then continued to be infamous with his Sonic the Hedgehog 4 rant, then ended up being known as the diaper guy, then ended up being known as the guy who cosplays as Sally in public and goes on kiddie parks in public, and now he's just the defeated man. Everything that he's tried to do ended up being a failure. Everything that he's tried to continue ended up continuing to not be developed with him. And the most successful projects, as far as I'm aware of, don't have him involved. We have a continuation of Archie. We're getting a continuation of SatAM. And Richard Kuda is nowhere to be seen. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's for the best that Richard Kuda just stays away from the spotlight, stays away from Twitter, stays away from Discord, stays away from YouTube, and just watches and stays a fan of the thing that he loves. Because he may not have the personality or the fortitude to be online, but he's still really passionate about this franchise, and I don't think that he should leave the community or leave the fandom. I think that he needs to be careful with who he interacts with online and what he puts online in the future. No one needed to know all this stuff about him, and I'm kind of sad that I know all this stuff about him. But yeah, that was Sonic Oddities, Episode 3, Richard Kuda. If you guys like this podcast, be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Patreon. $1 a month will get you access to these videos a week early. So if you want to continue seeing this content ahead of time, remember to back me on there. And it helps me out a lot too, because that's money in my pocket. So thank you guys for watching this. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to help me out, share it around. And if you guys like me personally, remember to subscribe. Bye, guys.